Welcome back, guys, to 191 Media. I'm Matt.
And I'm Micah, and today we'll be doing a movie review for the film The Green Knight. The movie was directed by David Lowery and stars Dev Patel, Joel Edgerton, and Sean Harris. The plot summary for the movie is Gawain takes up the challenge of fighting the mysterious Green Knight. He kills him, but it turns out that the Green Knight can revive himself as he is otherworldly. The Knight tells Gawain to meet him in a year to suffer the same fate, but it turns out that Gawain is only human.
The usual question I have for you, what were your first thoughts on this movie after you watched it?
My first thoughts were of confusion, doubt, fear.
Suffering.
It's a really confusing movie, and I feel like a lot of people didn't really understand what was going on within the movie until you look up online what's actually going on and the real story behind it. So I didn't know too much about it. I think I had literally seen a trailer online and I saw, ooh, The Green Knight. Like, I had no clue the background of this movie, but it looked like a potentially cool war movie. It was just almost a mess of a movie, in my opinion. I don't know what you thought about it.
I'd agree with that. This is probably one of the worst movies I've seen this year, in my opinion, so far. The movie is just, in my opinion, it's just a mess. Like, there's no explanation what's going on. It's very vague. It's very mysterious. It is shot really well. The cinematography is like amazing. The sound design's amazing. You know, the music's amazing. But as a story and a plot, like after this movie, I had no idea what just happened. I had to start looking up stuff to understand what exactly this movie is even about. So, in my opinion, I did not like this movie at all.
So, like, what do you think this movie was actually about then? Like, after you kind of like looked up a little bit more about it.
So apparently what this movie really is about the main character Gawain, who, as Micah mentioned, there was a Green Knight who was summoned for some reason to the Knights of the Round Table. It was like a meeting with the king and all his Kingsguard and knights. And this Green Knight just shows up and basically says he wants to play a little game. And what this game is that the Green Knight tells he tells kind of the king, if he lets someone hit the Green Knight in any way possible, the Green Knight will return that blow exactly as the Knight puts on him. So essentially the Green Knight does, he baits these guys, and Gawain, the main character, basically says he's not a knight yet, he wants to become a knight, so to make him prove himself, he takes up a sword and he says, you know what, I'll strike down the Green Knight, I'll earn my knighthood. And then the Green Knight baits him, because the Green Knight is actually some kind of mysterious being, or I don't even know, some kind of, maybe like almost like a god type being. So the Green Knight knows he can regenerate himself, but he baits him by like pretending he's unarmed, putting his neck up to get cut. So Gawain just cuts off his head, thinks he's killed him, becomes a knight, or not knight yet, and then the Green Knight basically picks up his head and revives himself and walks away. And he's like, well, I'll see you in a year to inflict the same blow. So this movie is essentially Gawain earning his knighthood and his manhood, essentially. This is what I found online and on different forums and resources, because, again, I have no idea what this movie is really about, personally. So basically all these challenges he goes through in this movie is to prove his knighthood and become a respectful person, because he's always been looking out for himself only and taking the easy way out. Throughout the movie, you know, people ask him for just, you know, a coin to provide directions. He's like, thanks, see you later, doesn't pay the guy. And if there's any easy way out of a situation, Gawain always takes it. Did you have any thoughts on the movie? Like, what you thought it was about, or if you even know?
Like I mentioned, I really had no clue what it was about, but when you kind of explained it a little bit more, it was like a almost way for him to prove himself as a man. And I guess we won't really go too deep into spoilers, because if we mention the reason for this whole thing, then I mean, obviously we'd spoil it. But overall, like, this movie had the potential, I think, to be good, because like you mentioned, the cinematography was really well done. I think the acting was pretty good.
Yeah.
I thought Dev Patel was really good in his role. Sean Harris played the King Arthur. The problem as well with this movie is there wasn't too many speaking parts. Like, there's so many scenes where it's just like a static shot where nothing really happens. Like, there was like, I remember like the scene where Gawain's riding his horse. I don't know if you remember that, but he's literally just riding his horse for like 2 minutes straight. And it's just a shot of him like riding his horse. So it's very like drawn out for sure. And I wasn't a big fan. I think I was like expecting a big war movie or something like that, but I probably should have realized, oh, hey, this is like a King Arthur legend. And I guess it's more trying to make people think, but the problem, like you mentioned, is they don't explain what's going on. So how can people think unless they know the story? Like, it's not like we read the Arthur legend before this, right?
That's the thing with these kind of movies. Like, I feel like the director expected people to have read the source poem from whenever the hundreds of years ago was written. But it feels like he expected people to know the backstory and be going to this movie like, okay, I know this source poem, I know the whole story, and I'm gonna see this take on it. And basically, you know, as a viewer, he expected us to already know what's gonna happen. And I think what I read was that he took some different liberties in the story, so it kind of went some different directions. But one thing, like you mentioned, the shots, like the movie's beautiful. It's an amazing looking movie. I noticed, like you said, usually in most movies there's a cut from the scene like every 5 to 10 seconds at least. This movie was like long shots for the whole movie. It was like maybe shots were like between 1 to a few minutes long for each of them. So it does draw you into the movie and make you feel for the characters. But at the same time, like you also said, there's no dialogue to explain what's going on. So if you have no idea what the source is for this movie, you're going to be very confused.
I feel like the first hour of the movie, there's hardly any dialogue, and he hardly talks to anyone once he starts on his adventure.
The only redeeming quality of this movie, I think, is near the end, where there's a certain, almost like a dream kind of sequence, which I think was done like extremely well, and it was very trippy and very cool to watch. But again, this is at the near the end of the movie, and I think this movie was just over 2 hours long. To me, it felt like it was 3.5 hours long. In conclusion, I'd say I would not recommend anyone to watch this movie unless you know the source material of this movie, or you just like watching movies for the cinematography and maybe the song choices. But even if you like medieval movies, this is not one to watch, I'd say.
And it doesn't have any of those points where you're just like, you're just like, holy crap, I'm literally gonna remember that for the rest of my life. Like, I can think of so many movies that I'll never forget, but then there's a movie like this, and probably in a couple of weeks I might forget almost entirely the whole movie. You know, the problem is it doesn't stick with you.
Yeah, there was no standout for this. I mean, I don't know why this movie was made this way. Just don't watch the movie unless you really like the source of this. Thanks for watching, everyone.
We'll catch you in the next one.